and it's clearly race. It is not xenophobia. Like they've had xenophobes on the shows. It's clearly like you are black and lesser. And so I think it's the first time I've seen white supremacy, especially on Doctor Who, confronted in such a way. Again, not in the past and not in such an ignorant sense, but just by young futuristic people. It's quite
Yeah.
compelling.
Yeah, definitely. And in a way that reflects the experience that most of us have.
Mhm.
Most of us have not been in a situation like Rosa Parks, but I can't think of a person of color who hasn't experienced the sorts of things that happen in this episode. I mean, my spouse and I, we have these conversations all the time. Like, was this a microaggression conversation? We have them all the time about things. It's one of the things you share stories about, and it's one of the things you don't realize is a weight. It's a mental and emotional weight that you have to carry through your life with you. And I can think of. I think what was interesting is that it is pretty over at the end. She basically literally says, "You're black, you can't come with us." And often you don't get that closure in real life.
Oh
You just
yeah.
have a series of microaggressions, but sometimes you do. And I can think of multiple examples in my own life when it's been colleagues mostly, and people I've worked alongside, and I'm like, "Oh, this felt a bit off, that felt a bit off." And then there comes a point where they make a comment that outs them basically. So that has happened too. And then you realize that you weren't crazy for thinking that, or you weren't being overly sensitive for reading, between the lines of what they were saying. And yet we are programmed to think that it is us being sensitive, and 9 times out of 10, or I would say 10 times out of 10, it's not. Um, so and as you say, that sort of insidious racism and that racism that we experience much more readily, I think especially in the UK, where we tend to be, "Oh, don't say what you think, don't show emotion, you have to always be polite." That type of racism is the racism that we all live with daily in our lives.